When it comes to the private establishments, the the owners have their own private rights and can impose their own rules and restrictions. As you pointed out, marami ng rules na ganyan. Bawal yung naka-shorts, bawal manigarilyo, bawal ang
Mm.
naka-sombrero. So, but these rules are imposed by the private owners. So it's not
Mm.
a law, it's not a statute, and so it does not give rise to a situation wherein an individual can file a case against the state for violating their constitutional rights against undue discrimination or equal violation of the due process clause.
Mm.
But of course, there is still a law in our civil law that when a person feels to have been that his human rights have been violated, being unduly discriminated, yes, they can file a case in court.
Yeah. So if I own a restaurant or a mall and I decide those who are not vaccinated cannot enter, I am well within my rights. This being
That again,
private property.
yes, that again, Sir Cito, is the balancing of right there. A private owner has the right to put up its own rules, and this can be one of the rules. But at the same
Mm.
time, the individuals who are prevented, they also have an argument. They might say that I am being unduly discriminated against. My human rights are being violated here. So then that would be correct. The best arbiter would be the court. If such an actual case happens and the person brings it up to court, then that is the court that will determine which right prevails. If such a
Can
rule,
can yeah, can the IBP do that?
um, there has to be an actual case, Sir Cito, no? Meaning there's
Okay,
an
yeah.
actual controversy. So we
Yeah.
cannot file a case on purely hypothetical and theoretical basis.
The first big issue or controversy will be the mandatory vaccination of employees, staff for dine-in facilities or indoor facilities. Do you see a problem in this?
Yes, Sir Cito. No? But before I give my opinion, I would just like to say first that the IBP has not made any official position on this matter. So what I am will be saying is merely my personal opinion.
Okay.
With that being said, Sir Cito, yes, while I really appreciate what the government is trying to do in trying to balance everything, no? From the protection of the public to promoting public health and trying to have the economy back on track. However, this really shows, in the words of the late constitutionalist, Father Joaquin Bernas, that governance really is a delicate balance, no, between the powers of government and the rights of the governed. And so, on that particular issue, while we do understand the need to have people vaccinated, as it is shown to be one of the uh, best options to really have our economy on track. But there's also that issue on a person's personal right, no? And uh, his not to be discriminated against. So in the case of workers, we have to visit also the labor code, and the grounds for termination are explicit in our labor code,
Mhm.
and where it could
Okay.
possibly fall is if it becomes a rule, no? An imposed rule by the employer or by the
Mhm.
state. But that also raises the question, if that rule becomes unduly discriminatory, if, for example, as you pointed out during your interview with Yusek Malaya, that there are people who are not still able to get the vaccine even if they want to, or there are also those that might not be able to get it because of some medical condition, uh, or those that have religious grounds
Mhm.
to not get
Okay.
vaccinated.
While we honor individual rights, there is always the belief that public safety and power of the state will reign supreme. 'Di ba? Meron nga tayong eminent domain, meron tayong police power, etc. Uh, so, hindi ba pwede yun or isn't that basis enough?
Yes, that is correct, Sir Sito. No? The state has that power and duty to promote public health and to promote the general welfare. This is the state's innate power of police
Mhm.
power to legislate policies that will protect uh, and promote the general welfare. However, there we also have in our constitution uh, a principle of equality under the law, or prohibition against undue discrimination. Personally, Sir Sito, no, I am fully vaccinated. I
Mhm.
would agree to such a policy, no, because
Yeah.
on my personal opinion. But the point of law there, that it is becomes undue discrimination when the means of promoting that public interest. So the public interest here is the protection of the general public and the
Mm.
general welfare and the public health. But for that policy to be lawful, the means of achieving that purpose must be reasonable. And when it is not reasonable, then it becomes unduly discriminatory. So a situation would be, yes, we want to protect public health, not just the vaccinated, the unvaccinated as well. I believe that is the reason for such a policy of having that sort of segregation
Mm.
in the alfresco and in dine in. However, for that means to be considered as reasonable, then it must be established by solid facts and strong science. No? I think that is where we are still. It's still unclear because the science is not yet that solid.
How would you advise a client if the Philippine government were your client? How would you advise them to resolve the matter?
Uh, my advice would be, I think the struggle is the same with the other countries, no? In showing the public that the means that we are imposing is reasonable. So how to do that? We have to show the facts, the data, and the science behind it, so that the rules that and the policy that we are imposing will stand as a lawful and reasonable rule. Because if it is not that established, then it is open also to being questioned in court, no, for being
Mhm.
discriminatory. So I'd like to point out, Sir Sito, no, maybe this can help our televiewers also. In our jurisdiction, there was only one instance that may be analogous to this, way back in 1927, when leprosy was still considered as incurable. And if you
Mhm.
remember, there was a colony established for those inflicted with leprosy. And
Yeah, the Culyon
the
leper colony and the one in Caloocan ba yun or ba there
yeah,
was
Ecolon, yes.
one is in
So
Culyon and the other one is in somewhere in north of Metro Manila.
yes,
Okay.
I'm bringing this up because in that case, no, in the case of, I think, Lorenzo versus Director of Health, the the Supreme Court upheld that policy of segregating the those that has leprosy to the colony on the basis that there is the support of high scientific authority. That is the words used by the Supreme Court, meaning it is really established that there's no other way to protect the public rather than to segregate them. But as we have seen, when science has caught up and it became curable and there is treatment already, then the policy also changed. The law became unreasonable to segregate them because there is already a cure for such disease. No?
Mhm.
So that is one jurisprudence that we can look into, wherein such policies of the state, and we have to understand the state has the mandate and duty of promoting the general welfare, always the community, and but we have to also always respect the individual rights. So
Okay.
in this case,
Le-
the state has to prove that there is high scientific authority, there is data, so that the rules and the policies become reasonable and cannot be considered as unduly
Okay. Le-
discriminatory.